Okay, let's jump right in. Think about the money in your wallet or, the numbers in your bank app. Dollars, euros, whatever it is.
Standard fiat currency.
Exactly. It feels
Okay.
like the bedrock, right? Permanent. But what if it's facing a real challenge? And, interestingly, not from some new digital coin, but from gold.
Yeah.
Something ancient.
Yeah, it's a fascinating angle, and it's central to one of the main sources we're looking at today. We're diving deep into a news piece by Doug Young from May 29, 2025, called Fiat Faces Crisis as Gold Regains Monetary Clout.
Okay.
Now, this piece didn't just appear out of nowhere. It came alongside other info, spot prices for gold and silver, stuff about gold IRAs, investment guides.
So there's a whole context around precious metals investing right now.
Definitely. But our mission for this deep dive is really specific. We want to unpack this article's core argument.
To get to the heart of its story.
Right. What's the narrative it's building about gold maybe making a comeback as a serious monetary player? And what does that imply for the fiat currencies we've all just accepted for decades?
Cutting through the noise to get the key insights from this specific source.
Precisely. And to really get why this is potentially such a big deal, the article takes us back. We kind of need that history lesson.
Makes sense. You have to know where we came from post-World War II.
Yeah, starting there. The Bretton Woods Agreement in 1944. That's the foundation.
Okay, Bretton Woods. What did that actually set up?
Well, it was massive. It basically designed the whole global financial system after the war. The U.S. dollar became the world's main reserve currency.
But it wasn't just floating free, right?
No, and that's the key difference the article stresses. It was anchored, directly linked to gold at a fixed rate, $35 an ounce. Other major currencies were then pegged to the dollar.
So gold was the anchor underneath it all. Provided some stability, I guess.
It did. It provided a framework, but as you said, that link, it didn't last forever.
Right. 1971. That looms large.
Huge moment. President Nixon, he announced the U.S. would stop converting dollars to gold for foreign central banks at that fixed rate.
Just cut the cord.
Effectively, yes. Severed that direct link. And that really paved the way for the system we have now. Purely government-issued money. Fiat. Its value isn't tied to gold or silver or anything physical.
And then the source mentions the petrodollar coming into play. How did that strengthen the dollar's position after the gold link was gone?
Yeah, that was another crucial development. Agreements were made, especially with big oil producers like Saudi Arabia, essentially saying oil had to be paid for in U.S. dollars globally.
Ah, so even without the gold backing, everyone still needed dollars to buy oil.
Exactly. It created this huge, ongoing global demand for dollars, reinforcing its role as the top international currency.
Okay, so after 71, gold and silver, they kind of fell out of fashion in official circles, right?
Oh.
The article suggests they were seen as maybe old news.
That was definitely the dominant narrative for a long time. Relics, almost. But this source argues strongly that they never lost their fundamental value. Qualities that fiat money just doesn't have.
And what are those core qualities the article focuses on?
The biggest one, scarcity. It's simple but profound. You can't just, print more gold or silver whenever you feel like it.
Right. No government printing press for gold.
Exactly. And the source argues that's what makes them reliable stores of wealth, especially long term. They inherently resist the kind of inflation that can hit fiat currencies when governments, create too much money.
Which brings us to the other side of the coin, fiat's flexibility. Its value isn't from scarcity. It's based on what? Trust.
That's the key difference the article keeps coming back to. Fiat works because people trust the government issuing it, its stability, its policies.
So it's confidence-based.
Largely, yes. Gold, the article says, has intrinsic value, meaning its value comes from its physical nature, its scarcity, its history, independent of any single government's actions.
Okay, so that freedom governments gained in 71 print money without needing gold reserves, it gave them flexibility, sure. But the article says it also created a weakness, a vulnerability.
It did. The source points out that this very freedom, it carries risk. It mentions things like modern monetary theory, MMT.
The idea that governments can spend freely in their own currency, just need to manage inflation.
Right. But the criticism, as presented in the source, is that this power can easily lead to currency debasement.
Meaning your money slowly buys less and less.
Precisely. A gradual erosion of purchasing power.
Yeah.
And the article hits this point home with a really striking statistic.
Oh, what is it?
It states that since 1971, the U.S. dollar has lost over 87% of its value when measured against gold.
Wow. Hold on. over 87%. So if you held gold since 71 versus dollars.
The gold has massively retained its purchasing power compared to the dollar, according to that metric used in the source.
That number, 87%, it really makes you stop and think. It starkly illustrates the difference the source is trying to highlight.
It's a powerful data point for their argument, yeah. It underscores the idea that fiat systems, while flexible, are prone to losing value over time in a way that fundamentally gold isn't because of its scarcity.
And what's really interesting, the article points out this disconnect. Public statements from officials might downplay gold, but what are central banks actually doing?
This is a crucial part of the narrative. Despite any public messaging, the source highlights that central banks globally have been pretty consistent buyers of gold, quietly accumulating more reserves.
Their actions seem, well, like they're hedging their bets.
The article certainly implies that, and it points to regulations as further evidence. Basel III rules.
How about?
They reclassified allocated gold held physically as a Tier 1 asset. That puts it in the same category as cash and sovereign debt on a central bank's balance sheet. Top tier, safest assets.
So regulators see it as fundamentally important. Risk-free, basically.
That's the signal it sends, according to the source. And there's another trend mentioned.
Bring the gold home.
Yeah, repatriation. Central banks moving their physical gold reserves back to their own vaults within their own borders.
Why would they do that?
The article suggests it's another sign of hedging, preparing for social instability, maybe geopolitical shifts, wanting direct control over those physical assets.
Which leads right into the geopolitics the article discusses. Emerging economies, especially, seem keen to rely less on the U.S. dollar.
Absolutely. The BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and now others are named specifically.
What are they doing?
Two main things, according to the source. One, significantly boosting their own gold reserves. Two, actively looking for and building alternatives to the dollar-based global financial system.
And the article gives an example, right?
Yeah.
Something about a gold-backed digital currency.
Yes. That's mentioned as a serious discussion point among them. A potential digital currency for international trade backed by gold.
Why would they want that?
The article frames it as a way to bypass the existing systems dominated by the U.S. dollar, and critically, to reduce their vulnerability to the dollar being used for sanctions or, economic leverage. It's about gaining financial independence.
Okay, so we have this focus on physical gold, geopolitical moves, but then there's the whole digital frontier. Central Bank Digital Currencies, CBDCs. Where do they fit in, according to the source?
That's another really important layer. Many central banks are developing their own digital fiat currencies.
Share the arguments for them.
Proponents, the article notes, talk about efficiency, faster payments, potentially bringing more people into the formal financial system.
Okay, efficiency. But the source raises concerns too, big ones.
Definitely. The flip side highlighted is surveillance and control.
How so?
Critics worry, the article explains, that unlike cash, or gold for that matter, CBDCs could allow governments to track literally every single transaction.
Wow.
And potentially even program the money, like make it expire if you don't spend it, or restrict what you can buy, or even freeze your funds instantly.
That sounds concerning. Big questions about privacy, financial freedom.
Huge questions. And the article draws a direct contrast here with physical gold. Gold you hold yourself is decentralized. It offers autonomy that a government-controlled digital currency might not.
So bringing all these threads together, the article seems to paint a picture of us standing at a kind of fork in the road for money's future.
That's essentially the conclusion presented. Path 1. We stick with the current fiat system, which the source argues carries these risks of instability, debasement, maybe losing public trust over time.
And path 2.
Path 2 involves a potential shift back towards what the article calls sound money principles, where gold plays a much bigger, maybe more formal role again.
Integrated with the technology somehow.
The source suggests that's possible, yeah. Technology might even make gold easier to use in a modern digital economy.
Okay, so stepping back. Why does this whole complex dynamic fiat versus gold, central banks buying, CBDCs, BRICS, why should the average person listening right now care? This sounds like high finance, big picture stuff.
But it's not abstract at all, really. This is the crucial takeaway the article seems to push. This tension touches on fundamental questions about the money you earn, save, and spend every single day.
It's about trust.
Exactly. Trust in the value of your money, trust in the institutions managing it. It's about the stability of the whole system and ultimately who holds the reins, who has control.
So it directly impacts your savings, what your money can buy down the road,
Yeah.
the whole economic climate you live in?
Absolutely. So understanding these shifts, watching what central banks do, not to say, seeing how countries like the BRICS nations are maneuvering, thinking about the real implications of technologies like CBDCs, it's important. Because the choices being made now, the trends taking shape, they will define the future of money, of economic power. And that inevitably shapes your financial world.
It really forces you to reconsider something as basic as money itself, something we usually take for granted.
It does. And thinking about that digital future, it presents this stark trade-off, doesn't it? The article really brings it out. On one hand, you have the potential convenience, the efficiency, maybe even the programmability of CBDCs.
But on the other hand,
On the other hand, you have the potential loss of privacy, the increased government surveillance and control that critics worry about. And contrasted with that is the autonomy, the decentralization, the long history of something physical like gold. Which path offers more security, more freedom in the long run? That's a really powerful question the source leaves you pondering.